we're live. Well, welcome to Mind Shifting
Yay!
Mondays with Mitch. And for those of you who don't know her, here's the one and only assertive, not aggressive, Tammy Schrader. And
Hello.
Tammy, you're coming from a restaurant on your 5 hour drive back home. Uh, just what were you meeting on?
Yes, yes. Well, I signed a contract to do some work for an ESD here in Washington State, and they wouldn't send it in because the law states I have to be there, which is hilarious because I work for NASA. They fingerprinted me, and I've worked for another ESD fingerprint. It's like my fingerprints haven't changed, and the lady did say, "Well, you never know if you're going to get a cut or your finger could get cut off." And I said, well, you could just, it doesn't matter. They were lovely and I got through it. And it's a miracle because I've been trying to get this paperwork done for 3 months. So I'm just basking in that everything went, and I'm happy to be on my way home.
And you left at what hour this morning?
6 a.m. Um,
Wow.
and drove over the pass, Snoqualmie Pass, which by the way is gorgeous. And then I'm ready to head back up. I'm in a little town called North Bend, and I raced to get here to make sure I got my 1 o'clock. It was just, life is going well today.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm here
And I
coming
get to
from New York.
stay with you, Mitch. I get to talk to you
And I
and
get
be with you.
and I get to talk with you.
Okay.
So I'm coming from the New York City area, and Tammy's coming from Washington State, and we've known each other for probably 15 years, roughly
Yeah. Or I was going to say forever, but okay.
forever, right? And we're here to talk about aggressive versus assertive. And I think that since we both come from education backgrounds, as caregivers or as educators, we all tend to go into pleasing mode, probably because we're good with people, right? Um, and as pleasers, we generally have a hard time asserting what we want or what we think is right because we're always trying to, uh, I guess, go along with what other people do. That's you too, right?
Yes. Yes. Especially when it comes to serving children. Yes.
And um, and a large part of what we talk about in terms of mind shifting, the conflict and collaboration, which is the book that's coming out in like 2 weeks, right? That's pretty exciting
Yay.
for me. And but a large part of what we talk about is the difference between being assertive and being aggressive. So, Tammy, why don't can you like talk a little bit about that?
I can, especially because I've been called both. And I really think it's a mindset as to whether we feel like we're being aggressive or say the other word again, Mitch.
Aggressive or
Assertive.
assertive,
Sorry, assertive. Assertive.
whether we're
And
asserting what we want or whether we're being
right.
aggressive about it.
And I find the whole thing interesting. And for me, there's a clear line because I've had people call me assertive or aggressive, and I say to them, "Trust me, if I were being aggressive, I'd just tell you I'm going to be aggressive now." Because to me, aggressive has a negative connotation because to me it feels more like either attacking somebody personally or saying insulting comments and trust me, I have been aggressive.
Hmm.
In times, especially when I'm frustrated. Can I tell you my lovely aggressive story last summer? Oh, maybe I shouldn't because somebody might hear it, but I was trying to find a room in a building and I had just driven 12 hours and I was tired and I couldn't find the room. And these people were trying to help me, but they clearly didn't know what room I was looking for. And finally, I looked at them and I said, "Do you even work here?" Like, and I knew at the time when I said it, I thought, "Oh, Tammy, you're being aggressive." Like I know that because I can feel it. Even though I went back, I did go back and apologize later because it was uncalled for, right? Because that was aggressive. And but there's a difference to me. I don't. Sometimes I think people think assertive also has a negative connotation. When I think about assertiveness, I just think you know what? If you don't tell people what you want, how are they supposed to know?
Yeah, I think.
Right?
Yep, yep. So one of the examples that I like to use about assertiveness is I was talking to this woman this spring. She's a single mom. Her daughter is 14 years old. She was
Hmm.
actually attending our class, uh, uh,
Oh,
and
okay.
she and I noticed she hadn't been in class, so I emailed her, what's the story? Are you okay? And she emailed
Yeah.
me back, and she said, I'm sorry, I don't think I'm going to be able to complete the class. My daughter attempted suicide on Monday." And I'm like, well, you do what you have to do. Like and then, because I'm a person, I care for people. So a couple days later, I called her back and we're talking. And again, she's a single mom. She's not able to work because she's taking care of her daughter now. So I just said, what about finances? How are you doing finances? She says, oh, we're struggling. My credit cards are maxed. And I said, well, do you have any family? Do you have any close friends that you can talk to? She says, oh, I could never go to them. That'd be being much too aggressive. I couldn't ask them. And I'm like, that's what family and friends are for. That's not being aggressive. And we talked about, when you make your needs known to people, um, that you're asserting your needs. People respect that.
Yeah.
When you're
I
when you
and
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mitch, I'll just tell you, you know this, that my daughter passed away like 9 months ago. And I remember, well, of course, I have 11 family, and we're all 11 family members, right? I have a huge family, and we're all aggressive and assertive, all of us. And every single member of my family called me and said, what do you need? What can we help you with? Blah, blah, blah. And I know when they ask, they're serious.
Hmm.
And I remember saying to my little brother, I can't figure out how to book an air flight. Like, and you know this, I fly all the time.
Right, right.
But I'm looking at this and the dates and the times, and my brain just wouldn't work. So I called my brother and I said, can you just book my flight? This is
Hmm.
what I need. And you know what? Tickets just showed up in my inbox. and and at the time, I don't think so. I love this word aggressive, but I think really it's more asserting what we need. And I'm going to tell you, when I first met my husband, and you know this is 42 years ago, I took a class, and they called it at the time anger management, which made
Hmm.
me laugh. But really, it had to do with I was working for the government organization, and they sent everybody to this class just to deal with the all the pressure and frustration of the job.
Hmm.
But it was really great learning for me because my husband and I had just met. We had just moved in together, and these two ladies are running the workshop, and one of them says, "How many of you believe that if somebody loves you, they'll just do what you need them to do?" And Mitch, I'm 18 years old, and I raised my hand, and I think, yeah, if Brent really loves me, he will just know what I need. And then we started to delve into that, and they said, you know what? How can somebody know what you need if you don't tell them? And that resonated with me. And
Wow.
so
Yeah.
from that time, and that was a good lesson to learn going into a relationship, because 42 years later, I will tell you, about a couple years ago, my husband came home and I'm in the kitchen making dinner, and he comes in and he goes, Tammy, I really appreciate that you always tell me what you need. And I'm going to tell you, I look at him and I stop and I'm waiting for the punchline.
Right,
And
right.
because you know it's coming. And I said, okay, where's the punchline? He goes, no, no, Tammy, I'm serious. I was talking to this guy at work, and he was talking about how his wife's birthday is coming up, and he's worried because now he's got to start paying attention to what she says so he knows what she wants for her birthday.
Mhm.
And he said to me, is it don't you do that for Tammy? And he said, no, Tammy wants a birthday party, she just plans it, I show up. Tammy will just tell me. Oh, one year I ordered a cake. I called the bakery because I'd heard about these great cakes.
Mhm.
And I called the lady and I said, yeah, could you put happy birthday Tammy on it? She goes, yeah, who am I talking to? I said, Tammy. And she said, you are not ordering your own birthday cake. And I said, yeah, because that way I get exactly what I want.
All right.
There's no hidden agenda. There's no, if I want something,
Yeah.
I know how to get it. Right. And I don't think that's aggressive. I think
And you locked.
putting
Okay, you're
myself
back.
into the universe.
No,
Sorry. So
that's
did you?
asserting.
Yeah.
I think sometimes I think sometimes as we're talking to people, and again, we have this urge to go along to please, and it's
Right.
it's hard in the moment to set limits or to set boundaries.
Yes.
So, what 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 would be your go-to in terms of setting boundaries? Do you think
You
about the
know, that's
situation in advance?
yeah,
What
that's
do you do?
so big a question, but I think I think self-actualization is a good thing. Like I think no first of all knowing what works for you and what doesn't. And the second thing I would say is finding a way to communicate that not in an aggressive way, but just so I took a job recently
Hmm.
and the superintendent sat down with me and he said, Tammy, what are your buzz things? What are the and because I told him, I said, here's some things you don't want to do because I
Right.
will not deal with it well. And he said to me, here are my two pet peeves. And I said, great, just tell me up front. And it was being late or being on your cell phone while you're in a staff meeting. I said, yeah, those are not things I do. And he said, what are your pet peeves? I said, listen, you do this, this, and this. And I gave him some examples. I said, you won't even get a 2 week notice. I'll walk out. I can't, like, I don't. And I said, I cannot do indirect conversation. You have something to say. I do well with direct communication. I may not love what you say all the time, but I can respect that you have the right to say it. And I'm going to assume, since he's the superintendent, I said, I'm going to assume that you and I are both fighting for kids. That may look different for us and it may sound different coming from me, but it's always about the kids. Oh, that's, and knowing that and knowing your motivation
Hmm.
is really helpful because that way when people say something, you can say, you know what, here's where the motivation,
Oh, darn. And Tammy has locked again.
right?
Yep.
And to me, the motivation is, um,
Hmm.
so that, I mean, I think that for me is the number one thing. Know what you want. And maybe if you don't know, you can say that too. I'm not really sure what I'm trying to get out of this, but here we go.
So what I'm gathering about it is it's easiest if you can think in advance what your boundaries are going to be. So you
Yeah,
can,
and most of us,
yeah,
if we would stop and ruminate on that, I think we know. I think we know what our boundaries are.
and then establish them and feel good about them. I'm
Yeah.
thinking back when my father, his last 2 or 3 years, I was his primary family caregiver, and in his mind, he could call me and ask me to come over or do something for him 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and pretty much I had to sit down, quiet myself, and think, well, something, I have work, I have my other family, I need some self-care. What is it that's reasonable for me to do? And then come up with, something what's reasonable for me to do is, if he calls between these hours, I will take the call. If it's outside of those, and I will take 2 calls a day, but I won't take more than 2 calls a day. And then if I will go over there regularly because he was about 20 minutes away. I'll go over there regularly twice a week. If he needs me to go over one more time a week, I'll go over one more time a week. But I will not go over more than 3 times a week unless it's an absolute
Right.
emergency. Okay. And
Right.
so setting up those boundaries myself in advance allowed me the luxury of when he would call and say, I need you to come over because I can't turn my computer on, to say, I'll be there Saturday, or I'll be there Wednesday, and
Yeah.
not to drop everything and go over there immediately. So, just, again, that idea of, we we're drawn through our limbic brain, through our survival brain, we're drawn to go along with whatever the people are saying. Maybe could you just turn the sound down a little bit because the music has gone up in volume.
Are you talking about where I
Yeah,
am?
yeah, where you are.
I cannot. It's
Oh
coming.
no,
I'm sorry. It's
okay.
coming over a
But
loudspeaker.
okay.
I will move closer to my speakers. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It's just that the sound all of a sudden.
Which is interesting because I can't hear it at all. First of all, I
Oh,
have
really?
headphones in. Yeah, we'll have
Okay.
headphones in. And secondly, I don't think it went up. I don't. I don't know why they would have done
Okay.
that. But anyway, I'll
Okay.
talk louder and we'll see how it goes. I'm sorry.
Okay. No. So I think first of all is to rehearse the situation in our minds to establish the barriers based on what we want, and then it becomes a lot easier to enforce them when it comes time. When you're actually in the moment, because once you're in the moment, you don't have the luxury of saying, wait a minute, let me think about this for a couple minutes and figure out what I want. You have to respond
Right.
right away.
Exactly. And I think giving yourself time to realize what's happening. And the other thing you mentioned that I thought was interesting or that I thought was powerful is, you have work, you have your other family. It's okay to consider your who
Yeah, it
you
is.
are
Mhm.
and what's happening in your life, like advocate self, right?
Yeah.
Because if that were someone to you, if
Self
I
care.
had called you and said, Mitch, you know what? My father keeps calling me. I got this, and this. And you would say, Tammy, you need to take care of yourself, right? It's
Hmm.
just like with the airlines, when they say, if we are in a crisis, put your mask on before trying to help somebody else, please, right? Because it's
Right.
to show up for anybody, not showing up for yourself.
In the conflict and collaboration book, and in the conflict and collaboration course, we talk about 5 styles of conflict resolution. And so, conflict resolution occurs when we're trying to influence somebody, or somebody's doing something that we think that they shouldn't do, or they're not doing something that we want them to do, and we're trying to get them to change or do something that we want them to do. And the first of those styles that we generally talk about is compete, which compete is basically you're telling the other person what to do, and
Right.
you're not necessarily that concerned about whether they want to do something else or what their interests are. You're not really interacting with them except to the extent that you're telling them what you want them to do. And then kind of the companion style to compete is you know is to accommodate. When you're using your compete style, you're expecting the other person to use the accommodating style, which is basically doing what you're telling them to. A third style is avoiding, which is you're avoiding the
Right.
conflict. And the other two styles are to collaborate or to compromise. But when we think about aggressive and assertive behavior, very often we're thinking in terms of the compete style. Could you would could you give some examples of a compete style, or describe it a little bit?
Well, one of the things I think about the compete style, and I don't have the specific definition, so correct me if you need to, but
But
I
wait a
think
minute, have you ever been wrong? Come on,
yes, so many
I've
times you
I've
don't
never seen you
even
wrong. I'm
every
sorry.
single day. I just practice it for the heck of it. Um, but when I think about the compete style, I think it's a frame of mind, right?
Hmm.
And the truth is, and this is why I think it's so important to be so assertive, is because you're not that competition is in your head, right? There's no real competition out there. It's
Hmm.
in your head and in your mind, and we create that scenario, and it's not a bad scenario, right? If I'm competing with somebody, and I think, like, I'll tell you, my sister-in-law just ran a triathlon, and when I say she did a triathlon, I don't know how many miles she had to swim, but she biked it like 118 miles and then did a marathon, and I think I don't want to compete with her. But when I look at her, I also think, what? She's my age. I could be more active. I'm not going to run out and run a marathon, Mitch, but I think about that competition. She and I we're not in competition.
Hmm.
Even though every time she finishes one of these like once a month or whatever she does, I do say, "Hey, you know what? Screw you."
Right. Good.
Right?
Well, we can't say that here, but
Oh, sorry.
no,
Oh,
no, no. I'm
sorry.
just just
Okay,
teasing.
I'm like, "Oh, Mitch, sorry." But I think
Okay,
about
so that was my version of compete, just to tell you we
right,
can't say that, right?
right. Okay. But the truth is, and I have a really good friend. Her name is
Oh, darn.
you may have heard of her. She was the
Okay,
2018
we
National
missed we
Science
missed the
Teacher.
name. We missed the name of the
Mandy,
person.
Mandy Manning.
No,
Ma-
Mandy.
Mandy. And she said to me, we were meeting over breakfast years ago, and she said, rules are just arbitrary. Somebody made them up.
Yep.
And when I think about competing and I think about that, I think, you know what? there's so much we could do to just
Yep.
go, you know what, the guidelines are stupid, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to feel like we're competing about that, but
Hmm.
I just keep that in mind whenever something comes up. Or like when I was at my last job, they kept a list. This is hilarious to me. They kept a list of who brought the most money into the agency.
Hmm.
And I remember even saying to them, you never, in not my interview, not the application, nowhere did you say this was about bringing money into this agency. Never. And yet you're keeping track of it, putting us in competition to rate us
Hmm.
for crazy. And I was
Yeah.
aggressive enough to say that.
And that's being assertive. I would not call that aggressive. I
I
mean,
didn't call it
you know,
aggressive either. I was shocked
yeah.
when and actually,
Hmm.
I walked into a higher level manager's office and happened to see the chart on the wall.
Hmm.
And I said, what is this? And he said, oh, and he told me. And I,
Hmm.
wow. Did it occur to anybody to tell any of us that this is happening at all? But anyway, okay.
Yeah. So when we talk about the five different styles of conflict resolution, it's not that we're placing any of those styles as better than another style,
Absolutely not.
because there are times where you do have to be competitive. Like when somebody is in danger, you have to be competitive to get them out of danger. When um, when it's uh, when you're a parent and your child has to do their homework, it's that's not a negotiation. That's not a you can avoid it, but that's going to cause both you and the child more problems going forward. That's where
Absolutely.
you have to use that compete style, which is basically telling them, okay, turn turn your phone off. It's time to do your homework. Blah blah blah. Um, but what you can do is using that compete style. That compete style can be used from, say, your survival mind, which is when you're using it when you're thinking in fight mode, or the compete style could be used from a more collaborative standpoint. So you can phrase it better. So that same thing about it's time to do your homework. You could be angry at the child for not doing their homework and turn off that darn radio right now. Go to your room, sit at your desk, and start doing your homework. And that's the compete style, but that's the compete style where you're using it from your limbic or your survival brain. But you can also use the compete style and phrase things in a way to know that let the child know that they're being heard, but there are certain things that have to be done. And I think I've heard you do that with people before, where it's like, well, look, this, you know, in order to meet the needs of the kids in the class, this is what we're going to have to do. In order to meet the needs of the kids in the school, we're going to have to change what we're doing this. And you're not saying that from an anger standpoint. You're just saying that from a matter of fact standpoint. Or sometimes you can say it from the standpoint of the other person, understanding the other person's feelings. Something like, look, I understand that you want to teach from the front of the class and lecture your students. In this school, we're trying to get the kids to have more agency about what they're doing. And I know it feels very uncomfortable. And if I were you, I'd be a little bit angry with me for telling you that this is the way we're going to have to do it. you're We're going to have to work on you being able to be more interactive with your students. And so that's also using the compete style. But it's using the compete style from from a compassionate, empathetic standpoint rather than a limbic standpoint. Do you have other examples of
Well,
using the
like
compete style like that?
when I'm listening to, like, so they hired me, right, to give professional development.
Hmm.
Now, Mitch, I am the worst person in a PD environment, right? Because let me tell you
Hmm.
something. If you're up there telling me something, you better have some credentials.
Hmm.
And I remember one day somebody said to me, Tammy, what's your title? And I said, it's teacher. And they looked and they said, really? I said, that's the title I resonate with, teacher. And it's really funny because one day I'm giving a workshop
Hmm.
and there's a table, Mitch, and that table is out of control. There are a bunch of adults. and they're taught, and they're having the best. And what I loved is they were having the best time. And finally, one of them said to me, and I said, you know what? You do you. This is not my workshop, right? This
Hmm.
is your workshop. You're going to take away whatever you're going to take away. But at one point, they stopped and they were all just having it was a table that was having the best time. And finally, they stopped and they said, Tammy, you know what we just realized? I said, what would that be? They said, you're one of us. If you were on the other side of this PD, you'd be sitting here with us
Hmm.
having a good, because if you're not having a good time, what are we all doing here?
Right, right.
And I think about that now. And the reason I think about that is because you're right. Sometimes PD providers, oh my God, I went to a PD provider one time, PD one time, and the lady, I scooted my chair over a little because I'm left handed and I wanted to give the person next to me,
Mm.
you can't do that. And I said, excuse me? She goes, no, you can't do that. You put that chair right back. I mean, so
And
that,
you're an adult. She's telling you as an adult.
yes,
Okay,
yeah. And
so I
I'm,
would say
I'm gray haired adult.
right. That's using the compete style from your survival
Correct.
brain.
Right. Now,
Right.
and I think about that and I think, I could have yelled at those people that they were having a good time. I could have gone over and said, okay, I'm going to split you up. I mean, I could have done any of that. Right.
Right.
And the truth is, they're just free out. I remember what it was like to be out for the day from kids. Love them.
Hmm.
But you step out for a day and you go, oh my God, this is so nice for my brain not to have to think and be on top of things every second.
Yep.
So, yeah, so those are the stories that I have, and they make me laugh.
Yeah, they make me laugh. Those are great. Yeah. So what we've been talking about is you can be asserting what you need to happen, um, and you can be using that compete style in order to make them happen, and you can do it in a way that isn't particularly aggressive. And what that's part of is it's part uh, of influencing people. And what we'd like to allow people to do, and I'm going to put this QR code on the screen here, is we have a downloadable
Yeah,
that's taken
I'm
from the
gonna
book.
take it
Okay.
too. Go ahead.
Uh-huh.
Sorry.
Okay. We have a downloadable. These are taken from the book and also taken from the course. And these are 50 questions that change the mindsets for other people and encourage them to cooperate with you. The 50 questions are grouped. So the first bunch of questions are designed to help you build rapport with the other person. The next set of questions are designed to help you uncover from them what's happening, what the situation is. The next are to explore possibilities for maybe things that could be done or things that might have happened. Um, the fourth set of questions are around clarifying what their goals and your goals are and what the mutual values are. The fifth set of questions are examining misalignment, like where do their actions not align with their goals? Where do their goals not necessarily align with what you want to happen? The sixth set of questions are helping the two of you or the group of you exploring different alternatives. And then the seventh set of questions are really confirming that, okay, so these are the things that we're going to be doing. I'm going to be doing these. You're going to be doing those. So it's a set of 50 different questions that allow you to assert what you feel should be done and maybe even modify what you feel should be done based on your interaction with the other person. These are all taken from the book that's coming out December 1st, which is Mind Shifting, Conflict and Collaboration, and the course, which we're teaching in January, Mind Shifting, Conflict and Collaboration as well. What are some of the things that you'd like people to take away from today?
You know what? I would want people to take away from today when we talk about aggressive and we talk about asserting. It's what is your purpose? Like, let's be honest. When I said to that person, "Oh my God, do you even work here?" I was frustrated, and I wasn't really. I mean, it was like, right. The purpose in that was not what it could have been.
Hmm.
And yet there are times when I know people have said, Tammy, you're being aggressive. And the truth is, I'm just trying to get to the bottom of the situation. Right. So I think for me, I more check in with myself about intent. And right. And I've
Hmm.
had people say to me, Tammy, you have that look on your face. My daughter has said this to me. And I'm like, that's interesting. I'm just thinking about the fact that I forgot to take the hamburger out for the meatloaf tonight. Like, and they read things. So that
Yeah.
would be the other thing is, we should not be assuming anything that's on people's mind.
No. No, and that's what actually. So those questions are a lot. Are nonviolent